Hi there and welcome to this 2-minute tips video, and today we're going to be looking at white balance bracketing. So in a previous video we looked at auto bracketing in relation to exposure and flash. That was a longer video, almost 10 minutes, and there's a link above. But modern mirrorless cameras and DSLRs not only bracket in terms of exposure, but also some other settings. And on the Nikons, one of those includes white balance. But those of you who predominantly shoot in JPEG will know that adjusting white balance in JPEG is really about getting it as close as possibly correct in camera, because it's more difficult to do in post-production, or maybe you don't want to do post-production on your images. And this is where white balance bracketing might be able to help you. So if you imagine you're perhaps shooting a scene with variable light, now that could be outside, it could be on a day where the sun is going behind a cloud and coming out, so you're moving from sunny to shade in your images. Or it could be where you're shooting perhaps a mixture of indoor and outdoor, or indoor where you've got mixed lighting conditions, or with lights with different temperatures, and where perhaps auto white balance, whilst it's very good in modern cameras, might struggle a little bit at the edges. And therefore what white balance bracketing is really about trying to help you get various options where you can then select the best image that fits how you want it to look. So white balance bracketing creates a series of images with differing white balances. So let's start by taking a look at the settings. And if you go into the menus on the Nikon cameras and you go into the photo shooting menu and you scroll either up or down to page 4, and you'll find there number 3 is auto bracketing. The top option when you go into auto bracketing is auto bracketing set, and in here you'll see a number of options, and down near the bottom is white balance bracketing, or WB bracketing. Remember, this is only going to work if you have your camera image settings to JPEG only. If you have RAW and JPEG, or RAW, it's going to be grayed out, so you have to use it with JPEG. And if we now go into these settings below, we've got number of shots, and to the side I'll put the chart from the manual to give you an idea of how it works in total. But if you scroll to the right, you'll get options for 3F, 5F, 7F and 9F, and the number there is the number of shots. And with those settings, the bracketing is set equidistant around the white balance bracketing that you have set in your camera. If you scroll to the left, you get B3F, A3F, etc. And the B and the A stand for below or above. So this will skew the bracketed shots either below the temperature that the camera is set to record at. If it's below, it will go more yellow. If it's A, it will be above, and it will go to the more blue end of the spectrum. As with exposure, you'll see on the scale below the settings, ticks appear for where the different settings are putting the shots, just to help you. If we then go down to increment, then you've got the option to select 1, 2 or 3 here. And each increment is about 5 mired. Now, mired is a measure of colour temperature that takes into account the variation in the amount of colour change at different temperatures. So for example, a change of 1000 Kelvin at 3000 Kelvin is much greater than the same change at 6000 Kelvin, and therefore it takes that into account. Now if you want to create the mired values from the Kelvin values, then what you have to do is multiply the inverse of the colour temperature by 10 to the 6. Now, unless you're being very precise, I don't think there's a need to go to that level. What you have to remember is 3 is the greatest deviation and 1 is the lowest. And a little bit of experimentation will help you realise what kind of settings work in what kind of situations. As with exposure, it's important to think about your other camera settings and then compose and shoot. Now where this is different from exposure, in exposure, if you had set the number of shots to be 3 shots, it would take 3 shots. With white balance, it only takes 1 shot and then it calculates and creates and saves the other images from that one shot. So I tend to have my shutter release set to single shot on this, because for every shot you take, you're going to get 3, 5, 7 or 9 shots around it. So it can become quite a challenge in filling up your memory card and also selecting images when you get perhaps into post-production or you're looking to share them. As with auto bracketing exposure, if you want to turn this off, then you go back into the settings and you move the number of shots back to 0f. So how many of you have used this white balance bracketing? Let us know in the comments below. Where do you find it useful to use it? I hope you found this video useful. If you did, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell and you'll be notified of future videos. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in a future video.